From the headquarters of MedianReport in Riga, Latvia, please welcome your host, Chris Peterson.
Autumn is time for conferences and forums. There are so many of them in the Baltics these days, and all are important. Though we decided to stay in Latvia to check out Riga conference as well as Riga COMM. We will talk to entrepreneurs and policymakers. We will also have some global and local news on economics, business and finance, so stay tuned, we will talk. Fresh data shows annual consumer prices in Lithuania stood at 4%, unchanged from the previous month. Latvia is just there with 4.1%, which is a 0.2% increase compared to August. Estonia surprised us all with 5.2%, which is a rapid decrease from 6.3% in August. As mentioned last time, food prices and fuel lowered the pressure, but central bankers still claim that the progress is fragile as household confidence remains shaky. In all three countries, a low-cost carrier Ryanair is planning to cut routes. It was announced last week. From Tallinn, it won't reopen 5, in Latvia 7, but in Lithuania there are no plans to expand. The representative of the company announced that airports costs have gone up, especially in Tallinn, 70% fee growth, and it is not acceptable. On the other hand, the spokesperson of Tallinn Airport said, and I quote here, "This is yet another example of Ryanair using public pressure and distorted information to influence public sector decisions and gain short-term financial advantages at the expense of other market participants." Lithuania's President Gitanas Nausėda has proposed using 20% of Sodra's budget surplus to speed up pension indexation, aiming to lift the average pension from 50% to 60% of the average salary. Economists agree the idea would boost incomes, but warn the fiscal and inflation risks. The Social Security Ministry expects pensions to raise 12% in 2026, even without extra funds. An €80 increase to €750 on average, or €810 for those with full service. SEB's economist says that allocating 20% of the surplus could raise pensions 13%, while Swedbank's Nerijus Mačiulis warns that higher pensions are a 11% minimum wage hike. A potential pension fund withdrawals could flood the economy with cash and make Lithuania's inflation the highest in the region. Another economist adds that Sodra's $4 billion euro reserve would cover only half of 2008 scale crisis, urging caution as the government weighs short-term prosperity against long-term stability. Estonia is preparing for local elections next week. Reform Party's prime minister has opened the gates of discussion about expensive fuel prices, standing with consumers and businesses in the fight against gas stations. I don't know why, but everyone talks about public transportation before the local elections, and Tallinn, of all places, has opened the topic as well. Nevertheless, it's facing a reform in which the routes will be aligned with the actual changes of population in different areas of Tallinn. And, according to experts, optimizing the system could save 30% and more from the total costs. Of course, there are some fun news as well when the elections come. One candidate has approached the area where another party's candidate was campaigning when a verbal exchange escalated into a light physical fight. It happened in Harku rural municipality with a population of only 15,000 people. Global markets remain fragile. The S&P 500 gained 3.5% in September and hit new heights with this week near 6,750 points, led by AI and tech, though analysts warn valuations are stretched and profits may slow. Gold surged past $4,000 an ounce for the first time as investors hedge against debt, tariffs, and central bank risks. Goldman now sees $4,900 by 2026. Yet some strategists call the metal overbought. The AI boom continues to divide experts. The IMF and Bank of England warn of a possible bubble, while Goldman Sachs insists earnings still justify prices. Tech giants dominate the rally, leaving markets concentrated and vulnerable if sentiment turns. Overall optimism persists, but it's an uneasy one built on liquidity, faith, and AI, and the hope that the soft landing still holds. There's one topic which caught my attention last week, and it comes from China. Basically, it can easily take control over the entire global semiconductor supply chain by putting export license requirements on all rare earths used to manufacture advanced chips. If enforced, this policy could mean lights out for the US AI boom and likely will lead to recession or even a short-term economic crisis. This is according to Dean Ball, who is a senior fellow at the Foundation of American Innovation. The bottleneck is a low capacity of US and allied rare earths. Basically, the Western world is not ready to face the truth that we are increasingly dependent on China, which one day, and that day may come as of December 1st, can close the door and lower the curtains. The reason is national security, and good luck arguing with that. Central bankers, finance ministers, and economists will gather to the annual IMF and World Bank meetings next week in Washington, D.C. They will be greeted by IMF's managing director, Kristalina Georgieva, who gave a rather interesting global outlook. I edited her presentation and picked the most interesting bits to show you right now. Here we go.
As I look at the world over the decades, what I see is incredible progress, but also unfulfilled dreams. The average person today is much better than the one 30 years ago, but the averages conceal deep undercurrents of marginalization, discontent, and hardship. My former professor of statistics used to say about averages, you can put your head in the fridge, your feet in the oven, your average temperature, would be average, but you will be dead. And what we see is many people in many places, especially the young, are taking their disappointment to the streets, from Lima to Rabat, from Paris to Nairobi, from Kathmandu to Jakarta. All are demanding better opportunity. Here in the US, chances of growing up to earn more than your parents keep falling. And here, too, discontent has been evident, and it has helped precipitate the policy revolution that is now unfolding, reshaping trade, immigration, and many international frameworks. All of this plays out against a backdrop of deep transformation in geopolitics, in technology, in demographics, with populations surging in some places and shrinking in others, and in the mounting harm we do to our planet. What is the result? Exceptionally high uncertainty. Globally, it has shot up and continues to climb. Buckle up. Uncertainty is the new normal. It is here to stay. As we know, next week the world's finance ministers and central bank governors would gather at our annual meeting. Wonderful to see one of our former governors Treasury Secretary Mnuchin here. Thank you for joining us today. As you know, this would be time of very intense engagements, and the most pressing questions will be about the global economic impact of these forces of transformation and the policy turbulence we are experiencing today. So, how is the world economy coping? Short answer: better than feared, but worse than we need. When we met in April, many experts, not us, predicted a US recession in the near term with negative spillovers to the rest of the world. Instead, the US economy, as well as many other advanced and emerging markets and some developing countries, have held up. As our World Economic Outlook will explain next week, we see global growth slowing only slightly this year and next. All signs point to a world economy that has generally withstood acute strains from multiple shocks. So, how do we explain this resilience? What made it possible? I would point to 4 reasons. 1, improved policy fundamentals. 2, private sector adaptability. 3, less severe tariff outcomes than initially feared, for now. And 4, supportive financial conditions for as long as they hold. Let me elaborate. First reason: better policy fundamentals and global coordination. In many parts of the world, sustained efforts have delivered more credible monetary policy, deeper local currency bond markets, new fiscal rules, and during the pandemic, and actually Secretary Mnuchin was part of it, swift, decisive, and globally coordinated fiscal action to limit the immediate pain and the lasting scars. Emerging market economies, in particular, have significantly upgraded their policy frameworks and institutions. We just put out a report on progress they have made, quantifying the gains. These economies now perform better when shocks strike than before the global financial crisis. Good policy makes a difference. Second reason for resilience: private sector adaptability. And again, we have seen the public sector moving out from where it doesn't belong, from the economy, the private sector stepping forward, and that is benefiting the world at a time of more turbulence. Just look at private initiative in world trade. Companies have been front-loading import orders in advance of tariff hikes and reorganizing rapidly their supply chains. Corporate balance sheets are generally strong after years of robust profit. Reflexes are quick after the dry runs of shock after shock. Artificial intelligence is becoming mainstream. Anybody in this audience using ChatGPT? Raise a hand. Okay, mainstream. And change is faced as a challenge, but also embraced as an opportunity. Third reason: tariffs, where the shock has not been as large as initially announced. The US trade-weighted tariff rate has fallen from 23% in April to 17.5% now. This is still much higher than it was before. The US effective rate, we calculate that it is around 9 to 10%. In other words, what is collected as tariffs is far above the rest of the world. But the world has been relatively steady this year with very few cases of retaliation. In short, the world has avoided a tit-for-tat slide into a trade war for now. But openness has nonetheless taken a big hit. And the story is not over. US tariff rates keep moving. Trade deals with the UK, the EU, Japan, soon Korea, they have nudged some rates down, while disputes with Brazil and India have pushed others up. And other countries' rates also are likely to move somewhat more. But bottom line here is better than we feared. For reasons: supportive financial conditions. Fired up by optimism about the productivity-enhancing potential of AI, global equity prices are surging. This plus tight risk spreads leaves funding markets generally wide open. And in addition, the dollar's slide earlier this year gives precious relief to non-US borrowers with dollar-denominated debt. So here we have it, 4 factors behind the economic resilience we have seen this year. But before anyone heaves a big sign of relief, please hear this: global resilience has not yet been fully tested. And there are some worrying signs the test may come. Just look at the surging global demand for gold. Spurred by valuation effects and net purchases, partly reflecting geopolitical factors, holdings of monetary gold now exceed 1/5 of the world's official reserves. On tariffs, the full effect is still to unfold. In the US, margin compression could give way to more price pass-through, raising inflation, with implications for monetary policy and for growth. Elsewhere, a flood of goods previously destined for the US market could trigger a second round of tariff hikes. Yes, world trade is rippling, but still flowing. Like water, it is not easy to pluck and stop. For now, most of the world's trade still follows the rules. We at the IMF are urging the world's policymakers, please keep it this way. Please preserve trade as an engine of growth. As for easy financial conditions, which are masking but not arresting some softening trends, including in job creation, history tells us this sentiment can turn on the dime. Today's valuations are heading towards levels we saw during the bullishness about the internet 25 years ago. If a sharp correction were to occur, tighter financial conditions could drag down world growth, expose vulnerabilities, and make life especially tough for developing countries. So in a multipolar world of rapid change, it is paramount that policymakers do much more to capture and deliver opportunity so they can meet the aspirations of their citizens, especially young people. So how could they do that? At the IMF, we propose 3 medium-term policy goals. First, to durably lift growth, so the economy creates more jobs, more public revenue, better public and private debt sustainability. Second, to repair government finances so they can buffer new shocks and attend to the pressing needs without driving private sector borrowing rates up. And three, to address excessive imbalances, both domestic and external, so they do not emerge as a spoiler. Let me take you through those three one by one. First, growth. Many of you have heard me talking about it. Global growth forecasted around 3% over the medium term, way below the pre-pandemic 3.7% level. Global growth patterns have been changing over the years, notably with China decelerating steadily, while India is turning into a key growth engine. Durably lifting growth requires, above all, higher private sector productivity. And for this, governments must provide and protect the basic building blocks of free markets, including property rights, rule of law, good data, effective bankruptcy codes, strong financial sector oversight, and independent yet accountable institutions. In too many economies, private sector productivity is tangled up in red tape, and startups can neither start nor grow. Competition, of course, is key, and regulation must not tolerate or create unfair advantage. So, today, I call on our member countries to embrace a regulatory house cleaning to release entrepreneurship energy, supported by strong institutions and governance. This is not a time for self-inflicted injuries. This is a time to get the house in order. To Asia, I say, deepen internal trade to include more final goods and more services, and press forward with reforms to strengthen the service sector and access to finance. Our analysis suggests that a push for more regional integration, notably by lowering non-tariff barriers, could raise GDP by 1.8% in the long run. To sub-Saharan Africa, I see the Kenyan ambassador here. Gains from reforms in this region can be especially large, given the young and growing labor force. Comprehensive, business-friendly reforms, combined with progress in advancing the continental free trade area, they could lift the real GDP per capita in a median African country by 10%. And to my beloved native Europe, some tough love. Enough lofty rhetoric of how to lift competitiveness. You know what must be done. So do it. Consider appointing a single market czar with real authority to drive reforms forward. Remove border frictions in the labor market, goods and services, trade in energy and finance. Build a single European financial system. For God's sake, get the Capital Markets Union to work for you. Build an energy union. Complete your project and catch up with the private sector dynamism of the United States. A picture can say 1,000 words. Here, what you see is how 7 US mega firms, none of which existed 51 years ago, boast market capitalization in the United States. United States? In the United States, right there. So look at the picture here and on picture there. They dwarf the firms of similar vintage in Europe. This has to change. Let me now turn to fiscal affairs, starting with the sobering reality that global public debt is projected to exceed 100% of GDP by 2029. And this is led by advanced and emerging market economies. Rising debt inflates interest payments, exerts upward pressure on borrowing costs, constrains other spending, and reduces government's ability to cushion against shocks. And one of the most dramatic casualties in advanced economies is that development assistance to the world's neediest countries has been regrettably on a decline. And what it means for low-income countries on the receiving end of this trend is more self-help, including setting a minimum tax to GDP target of 15%. I mean, frankly, you cannot have a functioning economy if your tax to GDP is 9%, 10%, 11%. We also have to advocate for fiscal consolidation as a necessity in countries rich and poor alike. And yeah, consolidation is difficult, as many of the recent episodes of social unrest show. But if it is planned, communicated, and implemented well, significant deficit reduction can be delivered, especially if it is helped by higher medium-term growth. And that's our hope, you know, grow your economy out of trouble. With that, let me now turn to the third task, reducing resurgent current account imbalances. As we have seen, these imbalances can trigger a protectionist backlash, and being mirrored by net capital flows, they can fuel financial stability risks. At the IMF, we are working hard to refine our external sector assessments, and we will keep pushing key players for policy corrections. To the US, where both private consumption and the fiscal deficit are high, and the current account deficit is at levels not seen since the early 2000s, we will urge action along two broad dimensions. First, step to address the federal government deficit, noting that the federal debt to GDP ratio is on a path to exceed its all-time high after World War II. We need sustained action that goes beyond discretionary spending. Second, steps to incentivize household savings, where consideration should be given, for instance, to expanding existing plans that provide favorable tax treatment for retirement savings, among other possible tax policy adjustments. To China, where private savings are chronically high and domestic demand is held back by protracted real estate adjustment and deflationary pressures, we urge transitional fiscal expansion and permanent fiscal recomposition. China needs a fiscal structural package to boost private consumption, transition to a new growth model, and reflate its economy, which will also help counter the recent depreciation of its real exchange rate, which pulls against rebalancing. This gives me time to breathe. Here is the exchange rate. Among other items, China's package should include more spending on social safety nets and property sector cleanup, and much less on industrial policy, where a new IMF paper estimates the cost at high level 4.4% of GDP per year. As for Germany, its recent structural shift to a more expansive fiscal policy, which should help bring down the current account surplus, shows that yes, corrections can be made. Bravo to Germany. Public spending on infrastructure, pushed up by providing incentives for private investment at home, will be especially beneficial as Germany seeks to inject new dynamism into its private sector. And yes, the country needs it and can benefit from it. So as I close, let me go back to youth aspirations. Mike, it is with a sense of deep responsibility that I lead an institution where our basic duty is to influence policies in a way that maximizes economic opportunity for all people. So today, my parting words are these. If we all pull together in this complex and uncertain world, we can deliver good policies that underpin free markets with smart regulations, strong institutions, reliable data, and robust safety nets. Policies with the power to further increase resilience and accelerate growth. I will finish with words I read on the wall in this room. A dream you dream alone is only a dream. A dream you dream together is reality. So let's get it done and deliver opportunity in this time of change. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, it was an interesting few days here in Riga, visiting two conferences. We will talk about both of them. First, it's Riga Conference, one of the most prominent security and defense conferences in the region, this time touching also some topics of macroeconomics. Latvian AI company Tilde, which is known for its own large language model Tilde Open, which is just launched very recently, it presented a powerful AI-driven translation tool to the Ukrainian government that will help them adapt the legislation to the common EU regulations and translate hundreds of thousands of documents in Ukrainian language.
Ukraine public administration is currently facing with this huge challenge: how to efficiently, precisely, and reliably translate this huge amount of European legislation acts. And with the help of AI and with the support from Latvian public administration, so we created this tailored, very precise, reliable AI-enabled machine translation platform, which is currently available and accessible for Ukraine public administration to translate this huge amount of legislation. And also the same platform is available for the Ukraine public administration ministries, servants for the daily translation tasks, like translation emails, translation documents. And here is a very important aspect in regards to the quality, reliability, and data security. So nevertheless, so we are talking about this to some extent even highly confidential document translation. So this security aspect is also very important. Yeah, as for the basis, so we use this state-of-the-art Tilde AI platform, where we added this Ukraine module, particularly tailored for legislation translation. But this platform, as such, is highly flexible and scalable. And we are currently engaging with the discussion with the Moldova public administration, where they have facing with the same challenge: how to translate huge amount of EU legislation acts, how to adapt, how to adjust.
Fun fact: during the event where CEO of Tilde presented this tool to the ambassador of Ukraine, the Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky signed a decree of recalling him from the post. Therefore, technically, after the event, I took the interview from the former Ukraine's ambassador to Latvia.
So translation itself, it's not an ordinary process which you might think that like a Google Translate or other type of tools might help you when you just copy paste from your phone or at your computer and it translates you everything correctly. An AI tool in translation, it means that it's a combination of technical work which machine could done quite fast and the soft could do quite fast, but then it's a combination of knowledge, people's knowledge on what different terminology and mean, and as well as how is this terminology is used. So in our case, we need to have a proper translation of all the EU acquis, which will be done by this AI as a primary step, and then probably adjusted by people to see where is it's translated correctly. And secondly, it will be immediately transported to Ukrainian legislation, and then vice versa. When you transpose the legislation, you change it. In order to prove the standards, you need also to translate all your legislation and to provide it to the European Commission to show that you transponded it appropriately and it works. So AI tool will fasten the process and will help us to work with quite big number of documents which are circulating. But it's a flexible one as well. So you need to understand that while you are transponding, the legislation is developing.
Latvia's state played a huge role in financing the project. I had an exclusive opportunity to ask the questions about this to the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Latvia, Mrs. Baiba Braža.
Doing it across the board. Political support, obviously. We have full commitment that Ukraine can be a member state of the EU and that it has both the abilities, political will, and sufficient already now progress to start accession negotiations. So we have to open the accession negotiations. Screening is completed. And then, of course, chapter by chapter, cluster by cluster, going ahead, it will be a very practical work. Second, what we are doing, we are teaching Ukrainian officials, local government officials, teaching the trainers to understand what it means to take over EU acquis, EU legislation. Because it's not only adjusting the legislation, it's actually implementing it, creating, reforming institutions, making sure that practical reforms take place, whether that's on water drinking directive, whether that's on environment issues or others. Obviously, Ukraine is fighting the war, so the most important thing is to help Ukraine to defend herself and to make sure that they are able to do that. But then also, we have private sector. We are supporting Latvian private sectors that helps Ukraine to advance on this EU path. And that is, for example, today, EU first large language model is Latvian. It's a company, Tilde, that has developed it, and it helps with the translations in various languages. So Foreign Ministry supported the project that helps translate all the EU acquis into Ukrainian. And that is therefore not taking years anymore, as it was for Latvia to translate all the legislation into Latvian, but actually it's taking maybe months, maybe a year, but it's much faster.
Russia's wartime boom is fading fast. Growth has slowed to around 1.5%, inflation is stubborn, and military spending now swallows 6% of GDP, straining budgets as sanctions bite. Industrial layoffs and fuel shortages are spreading after Ukrainian strikes on refineries. Meanwhile, Ukraine's economy remains resilient, still growing about 2.5% with IMF and EU support, but faces energy outages and rising reconstruction costs, topping $500 billion. Two economies, both under siege, moving in opposite directions. But because I had an opportunity to talk to an official from the Ukrainian government, I asked him what it takes to maintain a solid economy in the time of war.
Well, when the war starts, you got affected all the areas, and there's several pillars here. One is that you got the situation with occupied territories or territories affected by the war zone, which are located nearby the front line. And the first step is to find solution how to transfer these companies and also together with people who are working for them in a safer places and safer regions. This is one. Second one is that you need to understand that there should be the list of the companies which are strategic. And you also need to in case of war, you will have a martial law, and then you would need to also to call on duty plenty of people. And it's difficult for the company just to leave a lot of human capital to fight the war, and they need to run. If specifically if they're producing something important for the generally for the military or for the society, which keeps running the economy itself. So this is the second one, and overall is a problem that economic activity is decreasing while people are leaving territory, and you need to inject some resources. So the state supported with a partner support as well, supported the grants programs for private entrepreneurs and companies, and as well as help to relocate companies from war-affected zones to safer zones, and as well as started to work with the companies which can invest in a new type of technologies which could be used for the sake of war. But overall, it's quite difficult, and you also need to project these challenges for the economy in case of the war. So your model should include that, and as well as that human capital might decide to leave the place where you thought that they would stay. Logistics plays a key role here as well, because transportation of the goods which are produced also then matters a lot, and the price goes higher, and the capacity, buying capacity is lower, and so you need to spend time on that as well. So logistics on critical materials comes one of the key elements. So you need to also to ensure that you have suppliers worldwide on the key initiatives. And happily us that we are export-oriented country, and we struggled in 2022 with quite active military operations in the Black Sea, but then we shut down the Moscow warship, but also then we restored the control over some part of the Black Sea, and right now we have the possibility to export through the Black Sea our grain, which gives a lot of revenues to the company. Unfortunately, the logistics system which we had with European Union was not enough to export everything what we have, and it won't be enough even if the war is over, because we won't be trading with definitely with Russia and Russia's territory, and any routes are really needed. And here comes the project of Rail Baltica and crucial need of it. So if you strategically look into it, you need to understand that you need to spend time, but also to ensure that the appropriate volume might arrive to Baltic Sea ports from Ukraine, and vice versa as well. So it's a matter both of security transportation, but as well as of economy running. And if you don't have economy running, that would be difficult to keep people and society working, as well as to pay to military. You also need to have that into account as well. Right now, Russians are quite actively paying to new soldiers, and economy and their resources is something what helps them to keep going with their aggression. But nevertheless, the most important for the companies is to understand that you need to be flexible. And today, we at the conference we started with opening speech, which mentioned that the company should be flexible, and both with the technologies, adaptation to new realities, and this is it. So you need to understand that in case of war, you need to find other solutions for your supplies, but as well as to your approach to human capital, and keep running. The answer to any society: keep running whatever is going on, and then it will be a real answer and real fight back against the aggressor.
And now let's jump to another conference which happened these days in Riga. It's an annual Riga COMM gathering which features the most important names in Baltic IT and FinTech. Sometimes the best interviews are the ad hoc ones, and as I'm a big fan of Dokobit, a company born in Vilnius and now being part of Signicat, could not miss a chance to talk to their head of partnerships.
When I joined Dokobit and we started partnership program, the strategic goal was to bring e-signing as close to customer as possible. So one thing is the portal, what we discussed about. Well, anyone can just go there, create an account, start signing. But if we talk about businesses, it's better for them to have e-signing or e-sealing or authentication in specific systems that they use on the daily basis. So the goal is currently that we are chasing for is to make or integrate our e-signing, e-sealing, authentication functionality within different players like Salesforce, as an example, right? And different types of ERP systems, document management systems, pan-European, worldwide, and make it just plug and play and available from their marketplaces. So the customer won't need to pay for integration in advance. It's easy just to subscribe and start signing documents. So that's the goal, just to make this solution easy, accessible, and available not only in Baltics, where we are the strongest ones, but also in other European countries as well.
So it means that, for example, Ignitis integrates your API product within their systems, and so they have their internal signing.
Exactly. It can be internal for internal people, so they just go create a document and simply sign it within the system, or they can collect signatures from their customers, basically, which works quite similar to the portal. So the signing person gets the email, clicks on the button, sees the document and signs it easily.
During the conference, we could not miss the attractive electronic vehicle which moved through the busy aisles seamlessly. Please meet Bruntor and its creator, Raimonds Jurgelis. He's into micromobility, and his last-mile delivery tool, as he calls it himself, is provided to post offices, waste management companies, and even open-air party organizers selling ice cream and mixing cocktails.
Vehicles are necessary to transport something. But if you use the vehicle for professional use cases, let's say postal deliveries, then it becomes a tool. And the tool has to fit you perfectly to make the job more efficient. You cannot do things efficiently with wrong tools. If you have to hammer a nail in the wall, you would not use screwdriver. So, and I'm using the terminology tool because that's the way how we approach you as a customer. We are not selling you a vehicle, we are selling you a tool, and we make it custom for you. So if you have like different boxes or your standard things which you are already using or operating with, we are adapting vehicle or this one to you like individually. Actually, the most sold or most rented vehicle is for park and city maintenance because they literally have issue with employees with no driving license, and there are no special vehicles or special tools to make their work better. They have wheelbarrows, they have trolleys to pull, and then the next thing is already a small electric pickup truck where you need driving license, and nothing in between. And that is exactly where Bruntor comes in. It's different model than this one. It's open box with tool storage, and so actually today it's not here because our last one went to the customer just this morning, and I couldn't say no to them because once they test it, once they see the way how it goes, how easier it is to do the job, it's like support. Hey, Raimonds, when we can start? This is like a scooter brought to the business, actually, where if you are standing, you don't have to waste time standing up or placing the vehicle. That's why it's on 4 wheels, so it doesn't fall from itself. You just step off and do the job, you know, like it's way more easier not to think about how to place the vehicle properly so it doesn't fall. You just concentrate on what you are doing.
It basically saves time.
Yeah, exactly. Like throughout this process, the one thing, it saves time. The second is less effort for the employee, because standing up like 200 times a day, it's bad for your knees. It's bad for your knees. Like just try it out in the office one day. And that's what bicycle riders have to do every day. In the longer distance where you have to travel, like let's say between the stops more than 800 meters, then the cargo bike would be the better option, I would say. But everything less, Bruntor is the quicker. And sometimes you might have seen a postman pushing the bicycle. It's just because it's quicker to push than to ride in that short distance. But with Bruntor, actually, they can from house entrance to entrance is already quicker to drive because you step on, press the button, and you are going. Legal limitations are 25 kilometers per hour, the maximum speed, but we are delivering vehicles with 2 speeds. One is for pedestrian areas, like 6 kilometers per hour, and the other one is only 20. Just because it's a little bit larger vehicle, we want to limit a little bit speed from our side, just to make it more safer for everyone. Even though we have all-wheel brakes and different braking safety features, as electric brake, for example, so it doesn't block the wheels. Anyways, we limit the top speed also. The biggest time savings, those are the businesses taking care of city park maintenance, parcel deliveries, of course. That's where they are having like huge amounts of time just spent for looking for parking lots. Standing on the streets, not everywhere is possible. They are blocking the roads. It's not necessary, I would say. They are doing it sometimes anyways. But as I mentioned before, also like this park and city maintenance, city caretaking is the biggest and the hottest piece at the moment, where they literally have no options.
You mentioned an interesting use in Estonia.
Yeah. I just wanted to tell you about. This is Kadrioru Park. And they are actually also using bicycles. There are more than 50 caretakers in the park. They are using partly bicycles, partly push trolleys, and they are using Bruntor. And very interesting is that when we are going there for servicing, the lady is literally waiting till she will get the vehicle back. Actually next week we will deliver, I think it's next week, maybe in 2 weeks, we are going there and delivering the vehicle equipped already with a leaf blower built in. So they can pick up rubbish, empty rubbish bins, and clean the path in the one go. So then the time savings will be even more. So that's where we are seeing that we can add the biggest value at the moment. It starts from 6,500 up to 10,000 euros. I mean, it's kind of the range of good electric bike, where this one is more specific to the customer, and that's why the range is quite large. It is possible to make it 4x4, and actually most of the customers here, they are choosing 4x4 because of the winter time. Obviously, because then up to 20 centimeters of snow, it's not a problem. You are just driving and doing the job as it would be a normal day. yeah.
I asked Raimonds the question which I often ask to CEOs and leaders of large organizations: what challenges and problems to solve are currently on your desk? And he came up with an answer very quickly. It was not a surprise to me because nowadays I meet more and more innovative companies which face the tough obstacles of EU regulations, inconsistent laws, procurements, and other things which should not be common in a so-called common market.
In order to make a way for greener transportation, the first thing has to make the regulatory ground, not only saying, okay, we will close half of the Riga in one day for the cars, but if we are doing that, let's make in the same time like, okay, but you will have alternatives. And this will be the way how we see, let's say, when we take Latvia as an example, then at the moment there is no clear regulation for Bruntor. At the same time in Estonia there is like a LEV category, light electric vehicles, where we are under. Theoretically, it would be like in Estonia we can drive, but over the border it's kind of gray zone, you know. Even though that European law says that if it's allowed in one country, it should be allowed in other countries. Exactly. But it doesn't fit together. Like even the regular scooter is the same. If in Estonia you don't have to register it, here it says you can ride scooters only registered in Latvia. Which, again, like with the bicycle, that would be not a problem. But with the scooters and micromobility particularly, this is like a challenge which has to be solved in European level, because we are comparing now just two countries, but we are way more countries, and each country has different level of regulations. Some countries have weight limits, some countries have length limits. Actually, we are working already in one group in Spain. They are not making a law, but they are making a kind of a small framework as a tool for politicians to have a look, and they have like detailed information from perspective of manufacturers, from users. Like it's not only like people who are building.
It's a big case study.
Yeah, it's a huge case study where we are doing our input and explaining and trying to bring this problem like to the top, that actually it's not only country-wise solved in the right way, I would say, because we cannot over-regulate just because we are afraid. It is challenging also, not only micromobility. In Europe, it's in general the problem that we are united in one area, but we are not united at all. And in general, when we are willing to be competitive, we have to remove these obstacles. We have to become one large single market, even though we are separate countries.
That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I want to say thank you to all our listeners on Spotify and watching audience here on YouTube. We will see you back again in a week. Have a wonderful autumn season.
Don't forget to subscribe. And if you have already subscribed, join Median Premium Package for only $2.99 a month for exclusive content and full-length interviews. Find us also on Spotify and all the best podcasting platforms. Thank you for comments, shares, and likes. We appreciate them a lot. This has been a production by Standout.